The living legend, Narendra Modi's early struggles and the seeds of discipline. Narendra Modi's celibacy make him true decision-maker. Narendra Modi's semen retention make his positive aura. His spiritual meditation make him legend, yogi. This is live proof how semen retention, celibacy, and spiritual mediation make him true living legend. When we look at great leaders, it's easy to assume they were destined for greatness, that they were born into privilege, that somehow the path to the top was smoother for them than it is for ordinary men. But when you look at the life of Narendra Modi, India's Prime Minister, you find the exact opposite. His life was not a gift handed to him. It was a battlefield, shaped by poverty, hard work, and relentless self-discipline. And it is in those early struggles that we see the seeds of the qualities that later defined him: simplicity, celibacy, meditation, and an unshakable purpose. Narendra Damodar Das Modi was born in 1950 in Vadnagar, a small town in Gujarat. His family was poor, belonging to the oil presser caste, far from the circles of power or influence. His father Damodar Das ran a small tea stall at the local railway station. Young Narendra was not shielded from hardship. He was part of it. He would wake early in the morning to help his father serve tea to travelers. Imagine this, a small boy with bright eyes, standing by the boiling kettle, serving cups of chai to strangers. Listening to conversations, absorbing the world around him, life was teaching him humility, work ethic, and how to interact with people from all walks of life. This was not an easy childhood. There was no luxury, no comfort, no safety net. Poverty meant discipline was not a choice. Sit was survival. And yet, this early environment gave Modi something more valuable than riches. It gave him resilience. It taught him that nothing is handed to you, that you must earn every step forward. Even as a boy, he was drawn not just to survival, but to service. While his friends played Modi, often joined local organizations, learning about India's culture, traditions, and spiritual practices. He was fascinated by saints, monks, and freedom fighters. This is where we begin to see the connection to brahmacharya celibacy and the conservation of energy. In Indian tradition, celibacy is not repression. It is redirection. It is about taking the energy that would normally flow outward through desire and channeling it inward toward purpose, discipline, and service. Young Modi may not have known it then, but by observing saints and leaders, by absorbing stories of sacrifice, he was being shaped into a man who would one day live those principles. Even as a teenager, he displayed traits of self-control that set him apart. He was not a boy, easily distracted by indulgence. His attention was sharp, his energy contained, his willpower noticeable. There is a lesson here for every man listening. Greatness rarely begins with luxury. It begins with hardship. It begins when you are forced to master yourself, when you choose discipline over comfort. Semen retention, celibacy, meditation. These are practices that require sacrifice. They require you to go against the current of instant gratification. Modi's life from the very start reflected that spirit. As he grew older, the struggles did not end. He continued to help his family while pursuing his education. At school, teachers noticed he had an unusual quality. He was quiet but observant, disciplined but creative. He loved debates, theater, and reading. He especially admired stories of warriors, saints, and national heroes. This is significant because when a young man feeds his mind with stories of sacrifice and leadership, he begins to shape his own identity. He begins to see himself not as a victim of circumstance, but as a carrier of purpose. Here is where spiritual influence entered more strongly. Vadnagar, his hometown, had ancient temples, traditions, and spiritual teachers. Modi was fascinated by the ascetic way of life. He saw how celibacy gave monks clarity, how meditation gave them peace, and how service gave them respect. While most teenagers were restless, chasing pleasure, Modi was already curious about discipline and renunciation. At the age when desire pulls most young men outward, Narendra Modi began turning inward. That inner direction, that containment of energy, would later become the hallmark of his leadership. Now, let's pause and reflect on this. Most men in modern times are slaves to their impulses. They leak energy, chasing entertainment, women, distractions, and quick rewards. And because of that, they feel tired, unfocused, and lost. But when you look at someone like Modi, you see the opposite. His early life was about discipline, not indulgence. He learned to conserve his energy, to focus it, to channel it. That is exactly the essence of semen retention, redirection of life force into higher purpose. In his teenage years, Modi made a bold choice. He embraced the path of celibacy. This was not common in his environment. It was not easy, but it was consistent with the spiritual tradition he admired. In Hindu philosophy, celibacy is seen as a way to unlock higher levels of clarity, charisma, and leadership. By refusing to scatter his energy outward, he was preparing himself for service on a grand scale. Think about the power of that decision. While others his age were distracted by relationships or indulgence, he was sharpening himself like a blade. That is why later in life, his presence would command attention. Because when a man lives in celibacy and self-control, his aura changes. His silence has weight. His eyes have focus. His words carry conviction. People may not know why, but they feel it. This is exactly what modern men rediscover when they practice semen retention. Suddenly, their energy is no longer drained. Their focus sharpens. Their confidence grows. Women notice their presence without a word. The same principle that monks practiced for centuries, the same principle Modi embraced as a youth, is available to every man today. The discipline to contain, to redirect, to live with purpose, that is the secret of charisma and leadership. Narendra Modi's early journey was not glamorous. He was not rich, he was not powerful, but he was disciplined. And that discipline became his superpower. It allowed him to rise above his environment, to see beyond immediate pleasures, and to commit himself to something larger than himself. He traveled across India as a young man, seeking wisdom. He visited ashrams, met saints, and studied spiritual traditions. These travels deepened his commitment to meditation and service. He saw firsthand that India's strength lay not in wealth or comfort, but in values, self-control, discipline, and spiritual power. These values became the foundation of his character. Every great leader has an unseen force behind him. For some, it is wealth. For others, it is connections. But for Modi, it was discipline, celibacy, meditation, and energy control. That is what separated him. That is what gave him presence. That is what gave him the stamina to fight political battles, to endure criticism, to keep going when others would have given up. And this is where the lesson becomes clear for you. Semen retention is not just about physical benefits. It is about building a character that cannot be shaken. It is about preparing yourself to lead, to inspire, to serve. It is about becoming the man whose very presence speaks louder than words. When Narendra Modi stood at that tea stall as a boy, no one could have guessed he would one day lead a nation. But the same boy who learned discipline at the kettle, who embraced celibacy in youth, who meditated in temples, and who served his family with humility, that boy became the man whose presence commands the global stage. When we study the life of a great leader, we must pay attention not only to their victories, but to the foundation they built long before success arrived. Narendra Modi's foundation was discipline, celibacy, meditation, and an unbreakable commitment to service. In Chunk 1, we saw the seeds planted in childhood. Now, in his youth and early adult years, we see how those seeds grew into a disciplined lifestyle that made him ready for leadership. The call to serve. By the time Narendra Modi reached his late teens, his path was already diverging from the ordinary. Most young men in his town were thinking about jobs, marriage, and settling into family life. But Modi was restless, in a different way, not for pleasure, but for purpose. His fascination with saints, his deep respect for discipline, and his growing desire to serve the nation pulled him in a unique direction. He became involved with the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh (RSS), a nationalist organization that emphasized self-discipline, community service, and love for the nation. The RSS was not simply a political group. It was a movement of character building. Members trained in physical fitness, ideological clarity, and service-oriented discipline. For a young man like Modi, already drawn to celibacy, simplicity, and spiritual practice, this was the perfect environment to sharpen his character. At the RSS Shakas training sessions, Modi stood out. He was quiet but observant, disciplined but deeply committed. While others attended out of routine, he embraced it with passion. He arrived early, worked hard, listened carefully, and always volunteered for responsibility. His celibate lifestyle and simple living made him unique among his peers. While others occasionally strayed into distractions, Modi remained focused. His energy was contained, directed, purposeful. Celibacy as a superpower in leadership. Let us pause here to understand why this mattered. Leadership is not just about intelligence or talented. It is about energy, presence, and the ability to influence others. When a man practices semen retention and celibacy, he builds an aura that others subconsciously feel. His words carry conviction. His eyes shine with focus. His silence commands respect. This is what Modi embodied in the RSS. He did not come from wealth or status, but his self-mastery made people notice him. The organization trusted him with tasks, big and small, because he was reliable, disciplined, and tireless. His celibacy meant his mind was not scattered with distractions. His meditation meant his focus was razor sharp. His simplicity meant he was content with little, and therefore hard to tempt or corrupt. Imagine the contrast. Most young men waste their energy chasing women, comfort, or entertainment. But Modi conserved his energy. He redirected it into service. That energy became stamina, determination, and an inner magnetism. That is why he was able to rise through the ranks steadily, the wanderer and the seeker. Even as he worked with the RSS, Modi's spiritual hunger remained alive. He continued to seek solitude and spiritual practice. For years, he traveled across India, visiting ashrams, holy sites, and spiritual teachers. He lived among monks, observing their celibacy and meditation. He practiced silence, fasting, and deep reflection. These experiences shaped him profoundly. Why does this matter? Because when a man chooses the path of celibacy and meditation, he goes through a transformation that others can feel. His desires cool down. His energy rises upward, giving him clarity and calmness. His presence changes. He becomes magnetic without trying. This is the secret of charisma. It does not come from loud words or flashy appearances, but from inner stillness and mastery. Modi's years of spiritual wandering made him a man whose silence spoke louder than others' speeches. And this, unknowingly, was preparing him for the global stage. Return to service. A disciplined worker after his travels, Modi returned to Gujarat and threw himself fully into service with the RSS. By now, his discipline was legendary among his peers. He lived simply, with few possessions. He followed strict routines. He was celibate, committed to self-control, and devoted entirely to service. His tasks were not glamorous. Sometimes he was asked to organize local events, sometimes to travel long distances for small community work, sometimes to handle logistical details no one else wanted, but he embraced every task with full energy. This is another mark of celibacy and seaman, retention. When a man's energy is contained, he can put his full force even into small duties. Nothing feels beneath him because he sees every action as service. Leaders noticed his tireless spirit. They saw he did not complain, did not seek comfort, did not ask for recognition. He simply worked. That reliability made him rise quickly. From a small-town boy serving tea, he became a full-time worker for the RSS, trusted with larger responsibilities. The silent language of presence. It's one of the most remarkable things about semen retention and celibacy is the way it changes a man's presence. Without speaking, he radiates strength. Without demanding, he commands attention. Without chasing, he attracts loyalty. Modi displayed exactly this quality. Fellow workers respected him, not because he demanded it, but because they felt it. His stillness carried authority. His discipline inspired trust. His eyes reflected focus and determination. This is the silent language of semen retention, the aura that cannot be faked. It is the same today with modern men who practice retention. Suddenly, women notice them without words. Employers trust them without long explanations. Friends respect them without force. Why? Because energy speaks louder than words. And Modi, long before he entered politics, formally embodied that principle, facing obstacles with discipline, of course. His path was not easy. Within the organization, there were rivalries, challenges, and constant demands. He had to prove himself again and again. But because he had built his life on discipline, celibacy, and meditation, he was able to endure what others could not. When work required long hours, he had the stamina. When others felt frustrated, he remained calm. When temptation appeared, he was unmoved. This consistency is what made him stand out. In a world where most men crack under pressure, semen retention makes a man unshakable. That was Narendra Modi's gift. Unshakable presence. From worker to leader slowly, Modi moved from being a behind-the-scenes worker to taking on leadership roles. He became known as a master strategist, someone who could plan, organize, and execute with precision. His speeches, though not frequent, carried weight. His presence inspired dedication in others. His celibacy gave him freedom. He had no personal entanglements to distract him from service. His meditation gave him clarity. He could see beyond immediate problems into long-term solutions. This transition was crucial. He was no longer just serving, he was leading. But notice, his leadership was not built on privilege or inheritance. It was built on semen retention, celibacy, meditation, and relentless discipline. These were the foundations of his rise. Lessons for every man as we study this phase of Modi's life. The lessons are clear for every man seeking strength. Charisma and leadership. Discipline is destiny. Your habits shape your future more than your circumstances. Semen retention creates presence. Your energy, when conserved, gives you a magnetic aura that others feel. Celibacy builds focus. Without distractions, your mind becomes a weapon. Meditation creates clarity. In silence, you see solutions others miss. Service builds respect. When you give without asking, People trust and follow you. These are not abstract ideas. They are lived truths. Proven in Modi's life, he transformed from a poor tie seller's son into a respected leader. Not because of shortcuts, but because of discipline and self-mastery. Preparing for the next stage, by the time Modi fully entered politics, he had already lived a life of discipline that most men cannot imagine. He had wandered as a seeker, practiced celibacy, mastered meditation, and served tirelessly. He had built himself into a man of unshakable focus and energy. This foundation prepared him for the stormy world of politics, where temptations, attacks, and distractions come from every side. While others stumbled, Modi remained steady. His semen retention gave him strength. His celibacy gave him freedom. His meditation gave him clarity. His service gave him purpose. And with this, he was ready for the next chapter, the rise to political power, where his inner discipline would face the test of the outer world. When we look at the making of a great leader, there always comes a turning point, a moment when preparation meets opportunity, when years of silent discipline suddenly become visible to the world. For Narendra Modi, this turning point arrived in the late 1990s and early 2000s, when his years of service in the RSS prepared him to step into political leadership in good. But remember this, leadership is not born in the spotlight. It is born in the dark hours of discipline, in the years of sacrifice, in the silent accumulation of energy. Modi's celibacy, semen retention, and meditation had already forged his character long before the cameras pointed at him. The world was only beginning to see what had been building inside him for decades. From organizer to political strategist, by the late 1980s, Modi's reputation as a disciplined and tireless worker made him indispensable in Gujarat politics. He officially joined the Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, taking on organizational responsibilities. Unlike many politicians who craved attention and recognition, Modi was content working in the background. His retention of energy gave him extraordinary focus, enabling him to strategize, plan, and execute with precision. He didn't chase the spotlight. He didn't chase the spotlight, it came to him. Why? Because presence cannot be hidden. A man who has conserved his vital energy radiates authority even without trying. His silence is louder than others shouting. His calmness is stronger than others' chaos. Modi displayed this natural magnetism, and slowly, leaders in the BJP began to notice his ability to deliver results. The Gujarat earthquake, a test of leadership. In January 2001, a devastating earthquake struck Gujarat, killing tens of thousands and leaving cities in ruins. Just months later, Narendra Modi was chosen to become the Chief Minister of Gujarat, a role that required him to manage one of the biggest crises in the state's history. For many, this would have been overwhelming, but Modi's discipline prepared him. He worked tirelessly to organize relief, rebuild infrastructure, and restore confidence. His celibacy and semen retention gave him an advantage. While others were easily exhausted or distracted, he had reserves of energy that seemed endless. His meditation gave him clarity of mind in the chaos. He was able to make quick, focused decisions when others hesitated. This is one of the overlooked aspects of semen retention resilience in crisis. A man who conserves his energy has more stamina, more patience, and more inner strength to handle emergencies. Modi's leadership during the earthquake showcased this principle. While others crumbled under the weight of tragedy, he remained steady, and that steadiness inspired his people. The discipline of simplicity. Even as chief minister, Modi lived simply. He was not weighed down by luxury or indulgence. His diet was frugal, his routines strict, his lifestyle minimalistic. This simplicity is not accidental, it is the natural outcome of celibacy and semen retention. When a man redirects his energy upward, he is less drawn to material excess. He finds fulfillment in purpose, not in pleasure. This simplicity gave Modi another advantage: freedom. He could focus entirely on the needs of the state without being entangled in personal desires or distractions. His celibate life freed him from family obligations, allowing him to dedicate his time and energy entirely to service. Whether one agrees with his politics or not, this discipline is undeniable. The silent aura of authority. Ask yourself, why do some men command respect without raising their voice, while others struggle to be taken seriously even when they shout? The answer lies in their energy. A man who retains his semen, practices celibacy, and cultivates meditation builds an aura that others feel subconsciously. This is why Modi's leadership style has often been described as firm, calm, and decisive. Even his critics admit he has a presence that is difficult to ignore. This presence is not about physical size or loudness, it is about inner gravity. People feel it when he speaks. They feel it when he remains silent. This is charisma, born from self-mastery. Handling criticism with composure. Every leader faces criticism, and Modi has faced his share, especially during his years as Gujarat's chief minister. In politics, Criticism can break a analyst. He has built inner strength. Here again, semen retention and meditation make the difference. Why? Because when a man conserves his energy, he is less reactive. He does not get easily triggered. He does not feel the need to defend his ego constantly. He can listen, absorb, and respond with calmness. Modi demonstrated this repeatedly. While critics attacked him fiercely, he remained focused on his work. Instead of wasting energy on retaliation, he redirected it into governance. This is another lesson for men today. Don't waste your energy fighting every small battle. Retain it, conserve it, redirect it toward building something larger. Modi's calmness under attack is an example of the composure semen retention can create. The rise of a national leader by the mid-2000s, Gujarat's rapid development under Modi began to attract national attention. Infrastructure improved, industries grew, and his reputation as an efficient leader spread across India. While many politicians were caught in scandals or distracted by personal ambitions, Modi's celibate and disciplined life made him different. He was not easily shaken, not easily corrupted, and not easily distracted. This is the X factor of semen retention and celibacy. It creates a man who stands out, because in a world of men chasing desire, he is grounded in purpose. In a world of men leaking energy, he radiates contained power. Modi embodied this contrast, and the nation began to notice. Lessons for the retention man from Modi's rise in Gujarat. Every man practicing semen retention can draw powerful lessons. Retention creates resilience. In crisis, your stamina and calmness will carry you through. Celibacy builds freedom. Without distractions, you are fully available to your mission. Meditation sharpens clarity. In chaos, you will see the path others miss. Simplicity amplifies strength. A life free from excess gives you unshakable focus. Presence is power. Your aura, not your words, will command respect. From state to nation by the late 2000s, it became clear that Modi was no longer just a state leader, he was a national figure. His governance in Gujarat made him a candidate for higher leadership, and in 2014, he would rise to become Prime Minister of India. But understand this, his rise was not sudden. It was the natural result of decades of celibacy, semen retention, meditation, and service. His inner mastery created an outer destiny. His stillness became charisma. His simplicity became strength. His discipline became leadership. Every great journey reaches a defining peak, the point where preparation meets destiny, where years of inner discipline find expression in outer leadership. For Narendra Modi, that peak came in 2014 when he was elected as the 14th Prime Minister of India. For a boy who once sold tea at a railway station, it was an extraordinary rise. But for those who understand the power of celibacy, semen retention, and meditation, his ascent is not surprising. It is the natural unfolding of disciplined energy. 2014. A nation's choice. India in 2014 was hungry for change. The country was facing corruption scandals, economic slowdown, and a sense of drift. People wanted strong leadership, a fresh vision, and a man of conviction. Modi's campaign projected exactly that. His speeches electrified the masses. His confidence was unshakable. His presence filled massive rallies with energy. Where did this power come from? Not from wealth, not from elite privilege, not from inherited dynasty. It came from retained energy, from decades of celibacy, meditation, and discipline that had built a reservoir of charisma within him. When a man conserves his life force, his words carry a different weight. They vibrate with conviction. His gaze penetrates deeper. His body language projects certainty. Modi's campaign embodied this. Millions of Indians, consciously or unconsciously, felt the power of his aura, and in May 2014, they gave him a historic mandate to lead the nation. Semen retention and global presence. Becoming Prime Minister is one achievement, but commanding respect on the global stage is another. From the moment Modi began representing India internationally, leaders across the world noticed his presence. Think about it. When he met US presidents, European leaders, or even the Chinese leadership, Modi did not appear nervous, submissive, or unsure. He carried himself with composure, dignity, and quiet confidence. This is the aura semen retention and celibacy create. A man who has mastered himself does not shrink before anyone. His energy field is intact, his mind is sharp, his emotions are stable. World leaders often commented on his stamina, how he could travel, negotiate, and speak tirelessly. That is retention energy at work. While many leaders exhaust themselves chasing indulgence, a man who conserves his energy carries an invisible battery within him. Modi's daily yoga, meditation, and disciplined lifestyle only amplified this advantage. The power of simplicity in global leadership. One of the striking things about Modi is his simplicity. Even as Prime Minister, he doesn't indulge in luxury or extravagance. His life remains frugal, his habits strict. This simplicity is rare among world leaders, many of whom are weighed down by excess. Why is simplicity so powerful? Because it creates clarity. When a man practices semen retention, his desires cool and his need for external pleasure diminishes. He becomes content with little. This makes him more focused, less corruptible, and more grounded. Modi embodies this principle, and that simplicity makes him relatable, not only to Indians, but also to leaders abroad who respect authenticity. The spiritual leader in a political role, though Modi is a political leader, his foundation remains spiritual. His practice of yoga, meditation, and celibacy are well known. He often begins his day with meditation and has spoken about the inner peace it brings him. On International Yoga Day, he addressed the United Nations, emphasizing how yoga and meditation are not just Indian practices, but gifts to humanity. Here we see the deeper connection. Semen retention and celibacy are not just about abstaining, they are about transformation. They turn desire into focus, lust into vision, and restlessness into stillness. This spiritual foundation is what makes Modi's leadership feel different from ordinary politics. People sense something deeper in him, something beyond ambition, a sense of mission. Handling pressure on the global stage, being Prime Minister of the world's largest democracy, is no small task. Every day brings criticism, pressure, and challenges. Yet, Modi has consistently displayed composure under fire, whether negotiating trade deals, addressing the UN, or handling cross-border tensions. He projects steadiness. This steadiness is the fruit of retained energy. A man who conserves his life force is less reactive, less emotional, less shaky under stress. His decisions come from clarity, not impulse. His speeches carry patience, not desperation. On the global stage, this steadiness translates into respect, even from rivals. The magnetism of presence. There is something every man can learn from Modi's rise. Presence attracts more than words. Notice how Modi's global image is built not just on what he says, but on how he carries himself. His posture, his gaze, his calm expression, these radiate authority. This is exactly what semen retention practitioners notice in their own lives. Women glance longer. Strangers treat them with respect. Colleagues listen more carefully. What? Because presence is magnetic. Energy conserved becomes aura. An aura is a universal language. Modi's charisma on the global stage is proof of this law in action. From local struggles to global respect, pause for a moment and reflect on the journey. From a tea seller in Vadnagar to Chief Minister of Gujarat. From rebuilding after earthquakes to reshaping an entire state. From a celibate seeker wandering in silence to a prime minister commanding global attention. What powered this journey? Discipline, celibacy, meditation, semen retention, the conservation and redirection of energy into purpose. Without these, Modi would be just another politician. With them, he became a leader of global stature. Lessons for men worldwide. Modi's global rise teaches timeless lessons for men walking the path of semen retention. Energy builds influence. When you conserve your energy, you radiate confidence others feel. Celibacy frees you. Without distractions, you are available for mission, not indulgence. Meditation sharpens your mind. Clarity is the edge that wins in leadership. Simplicity is power. Less desire means more focus. More focus means more success. Presence speaks globally. Even without words, your aura travels further than you imagine. 2019, the second mandate. In 2019, Modi's leadership was reaffirmed with an even bigger mandate. His energy, charisma, and sense of mission once again connected with the people of India. By then, his global presence was established. He was not just Prime Minister, he was seen as one of the most influential leaders in the world. This continuity of success, again, points back to discipline. Leaders who rise without self-mastery often fall quickly, but those who base their lives on celibacy, meditation, and energy retention build something unshakable. Modi's second term reinforced this truth. The living example of retained energy today, Narendra Modi stands as a living example of how celibacy, meditation, and energy conservation create lasting leadership. Whether or not one agrees with his policies, no one can deny his stamina, his composure, and his presence. These are the fruits of retained energy, visible on the global stage. For men everywhere, the lesson is clear. If you want respect, if you want influence, if you want to rise above the ordinary, master yourself first, conserve your energy, direct it into purpose. Build presence through silence, discipline, and celibacy. Then, like Modi, your life will become a force others cannot ignore. If you peel back the layers of politics, speeches, and power, What remains at the center of Narendra Modi's life is something timeless: spiritual discipline. Long before he became a public figure, he was a seeker. Long before he became a statesman, he was a man of silence, celibacy, and meditation. This spiritual foundation explains his stamina, his resilience, and his magnetic presence even today. Celibacy as a life choice. Unlike most leaders, Modi never built a life around family. While others were bound by domestic responsibilities, he embraced celibacy, brahmacharya. This choice was not merely about avoiding relationships, it was about freeing himself for a higher mission. In Indian tradition, brahmacharya is revered as a path of power. It teaches that when a man conserves his sexual energy, he preserves his vitality, sharpens his mind, and strengthens his character. Instead of dispersing energy outward, he channels it inward and upward, transforming desire into willpower. This is the same principle modern men recognize in semen retention. It is not simply abstinence, it is transmutation. It is the conversion of raw sexual energy into charisma, creativity, and inner strength. Narendra Modi's celibate life demonstrates the truth of this principle on a grand stage. Meditation, the inner engine. Every morning, Modi begins with meditation and yoga. This is not a casual routine, it is his engine of stability. Meditation stills the mind, allowing him to carry composure into the storms of politics. Yoga balances body and breath, giving him stamina for the demands of leadership. Here again, semen retention and meditation work together. Retained energy can make a man restless, if not directed. But meditation channels that energy into calm focus. It refines raw power into clarity. This is why men on the retention path often feel drawn to meditation. Naturally, it is the tool that integrates their energy. When Modi speaks at international forums about yoga and meditation, it is not just rhetoric. It is lived experience. He knows their power because they are the disciplines that sustain him. The power of silence in many accounts of Modi's early life. Silence plays an important role. He often spent days in solitude, reflecting, journaling, or meditating. Even today, despite the noise of politics, he makes time for silence. Why silence? Because silence magnifies retained energy. When a man withdraws from constant talking, gossip, or distraction, his presence deepens. His words become fewer but heavier. His gaze becomes steadier. His aura grows denser. This is why Modi's speeches resonate. He does not speak frivolously. When he speaks, his words carry the weight of silence behind them. And silence is one of the hidden secrets of semen. Retention it turns energy into gravity. Brahmacharya and leadership in Indian philosophy. Brahmacharya has always been linked with leadership. Ancient texts speak of kings and sages who practiced celibacy to build spiritual power. The idea is simple. A man who cannot control himself cannot lead others. But a man who conquers desire becomes a channel for higher purpose. Modi embodies this principle in the modern age. His brahmacharya gives him an independence few leaders have. He does not need validation through pleasure or indulgence. He does not chase distraction. He is free to serve, free to lead, free to dedicate himself fully to mission. This is the bridge to modern semen retention. Both teach the same truth, that mastery of desire is the foundation of mastery in life. Daily discipline. The structure of energy Modi's day is structured with precision. Early rising, yoga, meditation, a simple diet, long hours of work, and minimal indulgence. This discipline is not an accident. It is the container for his energy. Without discipline, retained energy can leak through restlessness or distraction. But with structure, that energy becomes fuel for extraordinary productivity. Modi's discipline allows him to work longer, travel further, and speak more often than leaders decades younger than him. This is another lesson for men. Semen retention alone is not enough. It must be combined with disciplined daily habits that channel energy into achievement. Modi's life is living proof. Global recognition of spiritual strength when Modi speaks of yoga at the United Nations or leads International Yoga Day celebrations. He is doing more than promoting Indian culture. He is showcasing the power of spiritual discipline on a world stage. Leaders across the globe see in him not just a politician, but a man of inner stillness. This is rare in modern politics, where leaders often appear stressed, distracted, or corrupted. Modi's calmness sets him apart. His celibacy and meditation give him a spiritual edge that translates into global respect. It is the same in personal life. When a man practices retention, others notice even if they cannot explain why. His calmness, his composure, his glow set him apart. Just as Modi's aura makes him stand out among world leaders, your aura can set you apart in your world. The transmutation of desire into vision. Every man is born with desire. Most men waste it on momentary pleasures. But a few men learned to transmute it, to redirect it into vision and mission. This is what semen retention is about, and this is what Modi's life demonstrates. The energy that could have gone into indulgence was instead channeled into service, discipline, and leadership. The desire for personal pleasure was transformed into desire for national progress. The urge for intimacy was transmuted into intimacy with purpose. This is why his leadership feels different. It carries a spiritual undercurrent. It is not just about power. It is about mission, and that mission is fueled by retained energy. Lessons for the retention man from Modi's spiritual core. We can draw life-changing lessons. Celibacy is not limitation, it is liberation. By freeing yourself from lower desires, you gain higher freedom. Meditation is the control center. It directs retained energy into calm focus. Silence creates gravity. Speak less, act more, and your presence will expand. Discipline turns energy into results. Without structure, energy scatters. With structure, it builds. Transmutation creates destiny. Redirect your urges into vision, and your life becomes a mission. From the inner world to the outer. Stage Modi's greatest strength is not his speeches, his policies, or his campaigns. His greatest strength is his inner mastery. Without it, none of the rest would hold. His celibacy, meditation, silence, and discipline gave him a reservoir of energy that carried him from a small-town boy to a global leader. And this is the message for every man. Greatness is not built outside first, it is built inside. Conquer your desires, conserve your energy, discipline your habits, and then step onto your stage. The world will notice. Just as India noticed Modi, just as the world now does.